Ready. Okay. Hello, and we're doing this again. Starting all over. This is Vincent Easley the second. This is VinE, one of the many Vinnies, and we are here at reallibertymedia.com. We're live right now on rlmradio.xyz. And if you're not in chat, come on over and say how to do. A little later on, we're going to talk about the Texas Rangers, at least a brief history. And we're starting out with you are an FBI informant. This is in response to snowflakes and butt hurt. MD Lauder. Some people claim she's gobbling semen over on Twitter. I'm not sure if that's a fact or not, but we're going to talk about some of this. I put a post on Facebook, and I knew that there would be some backlash. So we're going to talk a little bit more. But this is reallibertymedia.com, rlmradio.xyz, and it is noon Central, which is a time and location at Real Liberty Media. And we're going to take a ponder Gander. And this is going to be concerning the Bundy Ranch and the Oregon standoff and FBI informant. And like I said, to many, many, many people, guard your words. People are so worried about these informants. And let me make sure my mic's here good in place. And this may be tied off. I used a Bluetooth last week, and we're going to try these earbuds right here. So I hope the volume's better. I listened last week, and it was crap, and crap goes along with butt hurts. And got a lot of pun involved today, and innuendo. So let's just start off, and I have this written out here, and this will go to the blogcaster. So let's just start. Sometimes you must make an example of someone. It is for the greater good of the empire, and that's sarcasm, by the way. So what evil abides in the hearts of man? Comply or die. Ponder Gander, and that's history in a nutshell. American empire and crimes of the state are hashtags, and the victory against you is your silence. Thanks, Al Anthony. This great evil, where does it come from? How did it steal into the world? What seed, what root did it grow from? Who's doing this? Who's killing us, robbing us of life? And, whoops, it got truncated. Well, if you'll just bear with me 1 minute, maybe I can, where'd it go? Maybe I can pull it up. Doggone. Sorry. Maybe I'll have to skip that and come back to it, or you can read the rest. So I've got a little change up here at the last minute. I moved my broadcast location to a mobile location, and I'm here in Texas, and that's not going to work. So I'll just go ahead and go back over here to the paste bin, and actually, bear with me. I'm going to go over here where I can read it all in Twitter, but it's going to mean that I'm going to have to scroll down here just a way. Da-dum-dum. Yeah. Oh, it always happens that way. And it appears that this Wi-Fi is circulating. Yeah, it's a spaghetti bowl. Let's throw it against the wall and see if it sticks. Al dente. To the tooth. From the tongue, that is. Well, as it catches up, I've lost the Wi-Fi. But thankfully, Grimner has me in here on the telephone. It looks like I can read anyway, so if what was already there, and we'll wait for that Wi-Fi to come back. So this, I'm just going to start out of order now since everything's thrown off. We've got a plea agreement that's came in from Bill Keebler, and this really ties into you are an FBI informant. You inform against yourself, and like I said, guard your words. And people are talking about MD Lauder. I'd like to say, to start, I applaud MD Lauder for her courage. She's not afraid. she's not hiding, and we'll talk a little bit more here and discuss this because it is so controversial, and I do expect a lot of blowback. I made a post on Facebook from one of Melissa's recent videos, and so I call it from butthurt poops, and that's pun intended. I will say this, there is a little difference between them and these tender snowflakes, the patties I call them, and I've given that an acronym of position authority to terminate individual entities' sovereignty. And we've seen a lot of that. We've seen how people have positioned themselves badly and have ended up going to prison for a long time, or in some cases the rest of their life. Recently, I was in Denver for the second week of Bruce Doucette's trial. Unfortunately, that man is probably never going to see the free world again. I did know who he was until I was there in Denver. Brand Thornton and I went up there. He took me along with him. Brand, I really like the guy. He's a good guy. He's got a good heart. I'll say more to that later, but thank you, Brand. Brand took me in there and gave me a place to stay while, after the Bundy Ranch trial was dismissed with prejudice. I just really didn't feel like it was time to go. I thought there was more to do, and it turns out that's really the truth. So for those that are hurt unintentionally, let me apologize to start with. Angie, Brian Bundy's wife, inboxed me after this post I put over on Facebook. I'm not against the Bundys. As a matter of fact, I stand with the Bundys, and I'm a proud poot, rootin' tootin', pootin' proud. I am VinE the Poot, VinE the Poot, not prude a bit, but I knew that this would be misconstrued, so I did add a bit of edit to that, and hopefully I can explain myself a little better. And I do talk in typo just as or make that taco as I type in typo. I talk in taco, and that's not something you eat, that's something you spit out. And that is the difference between liking and loving. Let's see here. I think. Let's see if I can get this. I'm not, because it's truncating. Hold on, just bear with me. It's not coming up. Doggone it. Well, I'll just go back to the face then. And for those listening over at Real Liberty Media in the chat, welcome, and glad you're here. And I'm going to go back here, and I'll just have to catch that up a little later on here. So, where was I? Yeah, from the thin red line, this great evil, and where does it come from? Wait a minute, I'm going to put some more spaghetti. Let me go down the line over here. Let me see because I think it's important to read this, and I think I can get it if I just go down far enough. And again, the difference between liking and loving. But I did seek to understand Melissa, and on Twitter it's at political_eagle, and we met last year in Vegas, and quite a conundrum. I really did want to understand what drove Melissa, and we're going to talk some more. Because as soon as I can get scrolled down enough, this is in response to the Goblin Seaman on Twitter. Unfortunately, I don't think I'm going to be able to pull that because I've still not got internet back. Doggone. All right, let's just scrap that and we'll go back to the paste bin because it's in front of me. And I'll start back here where I was at. The great evil, where does it come from? How did it steal into our world? What seed, what root did it grow from? Who's doing this who's killing us, robbing us of life, and that's where I lost off the truncation. And that comes from the movie The Thin Red Line. So the war for truth is foggy in a world of fake news, making my mark on the beast behind the woodshed. Thanks, Hal. Situationally aware, action-orientated, intelligence center of evolution and engagement. And if you're listening to Hal Anthony on Sundays here at Real Liberty Media, and that's at noon on the left coast, Pacific for the right-minded people. But I shall never surrender or retreat. And in the broadcaster, you'll have a Dabbly link, and you can come over and see this picture I took in over in Eastland, the cemetery. There's a row of monuments and memorials for the wars that they've been in, and unfortunately, they do not. I don't have the all the wars because so many of them are unnamed. We've been at war in this nation almost continually since our country is founded. That's quite unfortunate. And also, I have a shout out to Chuck O'Celli at the O'Celli Effect. Follow him on Twitter. Take a ponder gander. If meek ain't weak in the meeting of the minds. There are many ways of experiencing mountains, and I would rather assert, however, that mountains have innumerable aspects, or even better, that the term mountain may be used. Wow, Grimley, we've really lost all this in truncation here. Or maybe you know what? Maybe I'm just not, see, maybe it's just not going over. That's what is part of it. I just feel silly. Okay. What bridge did it grow from? I'm going to back up. Robbing us of life and light, mocking us with the sight of what we might have known. Does our ruin benefit the earth? Does it help us? Does it help the grass grow, the sun to shine, and this darkness in you too? Have you passed through this night? This is hard because I'm having to scroll sideways. Scroll them. Oh no! Boy, I feel so again, but just bear with me. So I'll go back to where I was at last. I would rather assert, however, that mountains have innumerable aspects, or even better, that the term mountain may be used to designate vastly different entities. And you can find the rest of that on my Twitter. All right. So as I scroll back and forth, so apparently, if you're not breaking the law, you have nothing to worry about from FBI informants, says Tom Lockavar Stewart. He's a good friend of mine. I met him in Bunkerville in 2014. He's been the subject of MD Lauder or Goblin Seaman attacks. I just got to say, if you're a convicted felon, you do know that if you get caught with a gun, the cops are going to come after you, and you probably expect to do some time in the penitentiary. Now, that being said, it doesn't mean that it's right, but law is not legal, and it's convoluted. Excuse me, and that's where we're getting into the problem that we have, and people are being locked up or being kidnapped, I might call it. So, Tom, this isn't against you, just as well as my post at Facebook is not against Kelly Stewart. And we're going to come back again. We're going to touch on this idea of what it is that Melissa Lauder has done as an FBI informant. Now, again, I'm going to back up and say you are your own informant. You inform against yourself. And you can find more additional information and from Hal Anthony. Now, I've been working with Hal for several years and listening with him as he broadcasts, and I'm not doing it now, but it was post-production for him and for his weekly broadcast here at Real Liberty Media. Sundays at noon on the left coast, Pacific Hal's set word. He's been trying to help people get a grip on this. Now, some time ago, I did say that if people had been listening to Hal, I think that we would not see so many people in jail. We would not see, we would not have seen Lavoy Finnegan murdered. Jeanette, you're such a wonderful person. I am so sorry for your loss. Yeah, and I know I've been misconstrued in that statement, and I kind of did it a little bit on purpose because it is so controversial, and I do want to bring people out and bring some of this stuff to light. Angie, your husband Ryan's a wonderful man, great man. The Bundys, I have the utmost respect for them. They would have been murdered if it had not been for so many people that came and stood in the gap for them. So don't misunderstand what I'm saying. I am not against the Bundys. I stand with them then, and I stood with them then, and I stand with them now. It's a terrible situation that we're in this world, and that's what we're trying to work through. And we need to do it in a better way. Or what's going to happen? We're going to see more people killed, more people kidnapped and locked up for the rest of their life. God bless Kim Doucette. I feel so sorry for you. When Brandon and I left, this guy down in Florida accused Brandon and myself as being FBI agents or perhaps informants. And I assure you that is not the case, except that it is, in fact, true that we are informants upon ourselves. So touch your words. I've heard so many stupid things from people. It's, wow. You informed upon yourself. Melissa Lauder, she comes along, she takes a contract with the FBI as an informant, and, what can she tell the FBI except for what people are already telling upon themselves? So let me see where I'm back at. Yes, this is from Helen Anthony back there. It's apparently, and Tom, if you're not breaking the law, you have nothing to worry about. FBI informants and Tom Lockavar Stewart. He was the target of Melissa having taken the guns that, a gun or two that he'd brought along with him, and he did about a year in the penitentiary there, and he has, I think, about 3 more years to, excuse me, to contend with because of that. On paper, there's on parole or probation. You got to guard yourself. We can't let ourselves be taken out. And as Brand Thornton has said, they're targeting the leaders. It looks like maybe they're going to come down with some more indictments with people. Go back to Bill Keebler. And I just got to say, I don't know the guy personally, but I think he's an idiot. And I'm definitely against that man. But let me ask you this. If you saw somebody in danger or you saw somebody going to do something very dangerous, would you want to stop them? If you saw somebody wanting to kill somebody, would you want to stop them? Now, this doesn't negate any of this about how the FBI comes in and formulates crimes. Don't get me wrong. And if you're an idiot, you're probably a little more likely to get caught up in that. That's happened so many times. They had 2 FBI agents and 1 informant involved, and he was going to go blow up some shack out in the middle of the desert. Nobody is in there. He did talk about blowing up mosque up in Salt Lake City. You want to kill people? You want to start off a war? You want to, kick off some revolution or civil war? All I can say is, if that's the type of person you are, you're a danger to society and others. You need to be locked up. I don't have any sympathy for Bill Keebler. Anybody that wants to facilitate the death of others, you're evil. Plain and simple. So apparently this plea agreement is going to wipe away any further troubles from Keebler Slate to date, suggesting that the federal government has already secured more indictments under seal relating to the protest in Bunkerville and possibly Burns, Oregon as well. You can find this story several places, Salt Lake City Tribune, but I bring this to you from Sherry Volley at Readout News. Follow her on Twitter, readoutnews.com. Sherry's a wonderful, prolific writer. She's been very influential to me, where I've found that I need to be more accountable, hold my own feet to the fire, in a sense. Going back, I hate this. You may recall these words: uvo uvum, vedendo, varia fit. That comes from the Scholia to Juvenal 2.81. It means literally a grape changes color or ripens when it sees another grape. And that comes from Lonesome Dove. Did you know you are, when you observe another, you really don't see them. You see your perspective of them. Thank you, Grammy Mary. Should be coming along at 6 o'clock Central. Let me translate for the time zone impaired. That's at 7 Eastern and 4 out there on the left coast. What happens when you're offended? Nothing. Move on. And that comes from a grumpy old buzzard on Facebook page post, Dr. P. Stain. And my cousin shared that with me last night. We were talking. I just thought it was so funny. I would felt like I need to include that in today's broadcast. I still have no internet. Thankfully, we got this posted over here in a paste pen. Excuse me. Let me just get a good cough out. Hold on just a minute. I'm going to mute this 1 second.
Hello?
Oopsie.
Dropped it, huh? All right. Well,
Yeah.
I thought you were hacking up a lung there.
Yeah, thanks. That's probably leftover weed that I've not been smoking since I've been in Texas. Okay, back to the grumpy old buzzard and from the Facebook page of Dr. P. Stain. P. Stain, what happens after you're offended? Nothing. Move on. Okay, so let's go into this post from Melissa, or MD Lawyer. And I expect blowback for my recent post from the MD Laudio, MD Laughter or Lauder video from Butthurt Poots. And there is pun intended there. I will say this, I'm finding little difference these days between them, and I edit out for clarification, some of them, and the tender snowflake patties that have no regard nor care to examine anything beyond their own opinion, or silence. Yes, that is innuendo and plenty of pun. This is not directly meant for any of those comments or persons specifically in that particular thread. And scrolling back, this is where am I at? In the end, both evaporate in the thin air, leaving nothing more than a lingering aftertaste. Furthermore, I applaud Melissa for her forthrightness, candor in making clear why she's taken the stand she has, and for not having any back down in it. I am also sure that this post will cut down my friends list some. It beats the bleating and the silence of lamb, or how I got your goat. Yes, that is intentionally esoteric. But those in the know can easily ascertain, and I've intentionally, now I'm stuck. There it is. That is, doggone. All right, so I guess it's going to come back here as my internet interruption is trying to come back online. Doggone. Well, let's just sit down out of the way here and wait for that to happen if it will. Sorry about this. I knew moving at the last minute was not a good idea. Derpy, derpy, derpy. And if this doesn't come on, I'm going to have a real hard... Hey, it's back on. I'm going to have a real hard time. Otherwise, I'm going to now need to refresh. Are you refreshed? Well, let's just take a moment and let this all catch up. I think I'm going to have to... let's see if Real Liberty Media is going to let me back in. I'm going to go ahead and reload that page. Dun, 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 dun. So the internet's back, but oh, this is can't be reached. Maybe it's not back. Oh, it's trying again. Doggone it! I've gone too far. This sucks. Wait, here it comes. Maybe I can get back here.
Yeah, just keep on talking about your other stuff there, VinE, while you wait.
Okay. Well, let's talk about Melissa. What happened out there? He was Buddha, or Brian Cavalier. That was his girlfriend. She was in Bunkerville in 2014. He went up to Malheur in 2016 to the Oregon refuge up there, the Malheur refuge, that is. Okay, so I'm talking and clicking over here, trying to get this back in here. I wonder. I really, she was quite a conundrum. She's a strong, intelligent, beautiful woman, and I've been quite intrigued. Here I am. I'm back in here. Yay. And Grimner, if you'll repost that paste in to me, I'll be able to pull that back up. Yeah, poke me with a stick. I really I wondered what motivated her. Or why did she become things? Why did she become an FBI informant? There's a lot to be said about that, and I really don't know the full story, but I really think that she saw so many problems, like Hal saw so many problems, and like me, I think that she was looking for peace, and maybe she didn't know where else to go, but to try to stop any potential harm in the way that she did. I admit, pretty hateful with some of the folks, but I've got to wonder, she's standing alone by herself. She's a fighter, so maybe this is how she saw that she needed to fight back. I look and I think about this. I don't know why else she would do it. I think that as we do consider perspectives, we do look at why people do what they do. There were so many idiots out there that showed up in 2014. I didn't go to Malheur, but I was in Bunkerville. And, I purposely did not get to know a lot of them people on purpose. But you know what? There were probably a great many more good people there than there were idiots. I've been a little tender with so many of these folks' feelings, and I've not want to be a part of any controversy. But I've decided it's time to come out of that. Now, my post is not against Kelly Stewart. That bickering, I could care less. It's not about me. But like I said, butt hurt poots. And if you don't know what a poot is, it's the name they gave to the Bundy supporters up there in Malheur when Dwayne Emer dug a pit as a bunker, and they tried to claim they was trying to dig a latrine. Anyways, not so much true. And everything is convoluted. too bad for that. So when I say that I've garnered respect for Melissa, it's because I think that she felt that that was the right thing to do. And when you're looking, again, when you're looking at somebody, you're not seeing them, you're seeing them as you see them. That's your perspective. So I've redacted in a sense or withdrawn and I asked Melissa. I said, I hope you'll forgive me for some of the unkind words that I've said about her, and that's not been a great many, but enough. So I just wonder, where do you stand? What do you see? And is it not biased and convoluted? Did she do it out of evil? Brand says he doesn't believe that she's evil, and we get into the religious aspect. She's a member of the Latter-day Saint Church. There's a lot of talk about on the VinE book and the White Horse Prophecy. When you get into religion, I mean, if you just look at mainstream Christianity, look how many different denominations are, different interpretations. How do people see things? Again, everybody has a little. How you really distracted me on that. I've got one bighorn Gander, and just like Brand does, he blows the shofar. Anyway, let me get back over here. I'm going to go up here and pull up the paste pen. Francis is calling. The other decline. We're on here. Did that knock me off? I don't know if I can add her in. Stop.
You're still in
Am I
the
still
chat
on?
for what that's worth.
Okay, I'm still on air.
Well, you're still in the air, and you're still in the chat.
Oh, good.
And you're.
All right. Good. Because that call was interfering here. Let me go back over here to the paste, and I'll finish reading that out. Again, we got a bowl of spaghetti. Throw it against the wall. Let's hope it sticks. I'm waiting for that to open. But anyway, so I've taken the judgment away from that I had against Melissa. And again, tried to figure out what drove her. I don't know. I think she was seeking peace and maybe to stop some of the things that happened. And people have not listened to good advice. And if you put your loyalties with people like Bill Keebler and others that want and reign of destruction and ruin, the death of others, because you're so far right, you've left off your moral and sound judgment, and you're a problem. And I think this is where I left out. I applaud Melissa for forthrightness, Gander in making clear why she's taking the stand she has, and for not having any background in it. And like I said, I was saying, I'm sure that this post will cut down my friends list, and it beats the bleeding of the silence of the lamb, or how I got your goat. You're really trying to call again? I did post it. I'm on there, and I can't talk to you and do this. I can barely talk as it is. Let's see, where am I? I'll drop back down. So, let the blocking begin. Ponder Gander, the squell, the smell, it's a louder stink. P.S. This post is not about being against Kelly Stewart, even though I seem to be removed from our friends list. And because of my wider stance, I was concentrated on strictly on the Bundy issue, and I've moved on to the broader aspects of where I was before, and taking a Ponder Gander and considering perspectives. I've re-engaged, which I will not call them trolls anymore, because, that's kind of dismissive, right? Because people have differing in opinion. Everybody supposes everybody's a Paige Schill. I don't think that's true. People are, they have their opinions, and like I said, you just can't see beyond that sometimes. But no man in the wrong can stand up against a fellow that's in the right and keeps on a coming. And those 19 words have evolved into the Ranger Creed. It comes from Captain Bill McDonald. You can find that on my Twitter for links on that. We're going to move in to the second half here. Just an hour today again, not 2 hours. Next week, I think we're going to have Captain Carl and Brent Thornton come back in here with us. And we're going to talk about what they've been up to. Are those guys going to get indicted later on? I don't know what's going to happen here. We're looking at problems. I've been saying that it's not over. Really don't think it's over at all. And let's move over here. If this link is going to work for me, it's going to take probably a minute to open back up. Good study pot. Hey, there it is. And this is from the Texas Ranger Museum. It's a brief history on the Rangers down in Waco. I've been down there. Matter of fact, let's see, 1996, been about 3 years after the FBI and ATF and all the other alphabet agencies went in there. They're the ones who set fire, not those what they call Branch Davidians. Let's hear what they've written here. Stephen F. Austin assumed his late father's contract as impresario, or developer of settlements in the Mexican province of Tejas. He was authorized to recruit settlers from the U.S. and Europe who would be given land if, among other conditions, they agreed to become Mexican citizens, adopt the Catholic religion, and learn to speak Espanol. Austin was rewarded for his service with land, titles, and military powers over the colony. His calling and those proposed by other impresarios would serve to reinforce Mexico's claims to Texas and act as a buffer between the hostile Comanche Indians and Hispanic settlers at the San Antonio de Bexar and Laredo. By 1823, there were serious problems with raids by Comanche, Tonkawa, and Karankawa Indians. Under Mexican law, Austin was authorized to form a militia to ward off Indian raids, capture criminals, and patrol against intruders. In May, while Austin was in Mexico City, his lieutenant, Moses Morrison, used his authority to assemble a company of men to protect the Texas coast from the Tonkawa and other Indians. After returning to Texas in 1823, Austin asked for additional 10 men to supplement Morrison's company. He called for 10 men to act as rangers for the common defense. The wages I will give, said 10 men is $15 a month, payable in property. These two companies are regarded as the first ancestors of the modern-day Texas Rangers. The term Texas Rangers did not appear officially in a piece of legislation until 1874. During Austin's day, companies of men volunteered and disbanded as needed. Some served for days and others for many months. The official records show that these companies were called by many names: ranging companies, mounted gunmen, mounted volunteers, Minutemen, spies, scouts, and mounted rifle companies. While communicating with the commanders of his Hispanic ranging company, Austin, who was fluent in Spanish, called them Milicia Nacional, National Militia, after Spanish and Mexican militia regulations dating back to 1713. By whatever name they were known, these units performed the same ranging service. Literally, Several companies fought on foot and employed fifers and drummers in the European and colonial American military positions. While these proved ineffective against mounted Indians, they quickly adopted frontier horseback styles. They became so effective against Indian guerrilla raids that they strongly influenced the formation of the U.S. and the Confederate States of America, their cavalry, during the Civil War. Early Rangers were required to provide their own horses and equipment. They fought battles in which they were often outnumbered by as much as 50 to 1. So it was common for each man to carry multiple pistols, rifles, and knives. Like Texas, the early Texas Rangers had multicultural roots. Company roles show the Anglos, Hispanics, and American Indians served in all ranks, from private to captain. These men freely borrowed from each other's experience and equipment. While most had been born in the American South, many hailed from Ireland, Germany, Scotland, and English, and spoke with their native accent. Early Rangers shot Spanish pistols, Tennessee and Kentucky rifles. They carried the Bowie knives made in Sheffield, England, and rode swift Mexican ponies. One writer said that a Texas Ranger could ride like a Mexican, drill like an Indian, and shoot like a Tennessean, and fight like the devil. Texas Rangers often served as unintended volunteers since government offers of payment rarely materialized. In 1835, the movement for Texas independence was about to boil over. A council of colonial Texan representatives created a corps of rangers to protect the frontier from hostile enemies. For the first time, their pay was officially set at $1.25 a day, and they were to elect their own officers. They were also required to furnish their own arms, mounts, and equipment. The Corps was commanded by R.M., three-legged Williamson, so nicknamed because he had a wooden leg to support a crippled limb, and was also led by Captain William Arrington, Isaac Burleson, and John T. Tumlinson. Settlers rebelled against the Mexican government in 1836 over violations of the rights and the suspension of immigration from the U.S. and Europe. Texas Rangers played an important but little-known role in this conflict. They covered the retreat of civilians from dictator Santa Anna, his army, in the famous runaway scrape, harassed columns of Mexican troops, and provided valuable intelligence to the Texas Army. The only men to ride in response to Colonel William B. Travis' last-minute plea to defend the Alamo were Rangers who fought and died in the cause of Texas freedom. Brave too much? Certainly one of the most famous early-day Texas Rangers was John Coffey Jack Hayes. He came to San Antonio in 1837, and within 3 years was named a Ranger captain. Hayes built a reputation fighting marauding Indians and Mexican bandits. An Indian who switched sides and rode with Hayes and his men called the young Ranger Captain Brave Too Much. Hayes' bravado was too much for many, a hostile Indian or outlaw. In dealing with persons deemed a threat to Texas, Hayes helped to establish another Ranger tradition, toughness mixed with a reliance on the latest technology, and that being the Colt revolver. The Republic of Texas was one of the earliest customers of a New England gunmaker, Samuel Colt. Colt had invented a fragile 36 caliber 5-shot revolver, a weapon Hayes and his men used with deadly effect in defense of the Texas frontier. No longer would his men have to pause in battle to reload single-shot pistols and rifles while the Indians continued firing arrows. Colt built his reputation on the use of his weapons by the Texas Rangers. One of Hayes' men, Samuel H. Walker, made some suggestions for improving the pistol that Colt adopted during the Mexican War. The new weapon, the 5-pound frontier equivalent of a nuclear bomb, was called the Walker Colt. In 1842, another former Ranger, Bigfoot Wallace, took part in the ill-fated Meyer expedition in which a group of Texans invaded Mexico. The Texans were captured and every 10th man was ordered executed. And you might remember this from the movie. The fate of the prisoner was determined in a drawing. Those who drew a white bean lived, and a black bean meant death. Walker drew a white bean, and so did Wallace. War with Mexico. In 1846, within a year of Texas admission as a 28th state of the Union, the United States and Mexico are at war. Walker joined one of the several ranger companies that were mustered into federal service to function as scouts. The Rangers fought with such ferocity in the war that they became to be called Los Diablos Tejanos, the Texas Devils. The luck Walter had after Myra did not hold. He was killed in the fighting. For the next decade after the Mexican War, the Rangers existed primarily as a volunteer company. Raised when the need arose and disbanded when their work was done. Excuse me one second. Thank you. Excuse me. And here I'm back. To the Civil War. During the Civil War, with thousands of Texans off fighting with the Confederate Army, frontier protection was afforded by a regiment of Rangers. Even it eventually became part of the Confederate Army. The backbone of home front security was still the volunteer ranging company whose members operated on the legal authority of the pistols they carried on their hips or the rifles swung in the saddle boot. After the war, the legislature passed a bill creating 3 companies of Texas Rangers, but a bill to provide funding failed. Financial support for state law enforcement in the early 1870s was sporadic. For all practical purposes, there were no Texas Rangers for nearly a decade after the war. During this time, law enforcement was handled by a highly politically and roundly hated organization known as the State Police. Texas, like other southern states, was in the throes of Reconstruction, and any authority, civil or military, was distrusted. The force eventually was disbanded. Checking my battery life, looking at unfortunately, the problem that had made some kind of statewide police force necessary in the first place had not
VinE,
disappeared.
your volume's dropping off there.
Uh-oh. Better?
A little bit.
Well, let me just whack it a little bit. How's that?
Well, just try and speak up some, that's all.
Okay. So that whacked a little bit comes from, again, from the Lonesome Dove, and Mexican strawberries is on the menu. That was their cook whacking the bell. He says, "It's my bell, and I'll whack it if I want to." Unfortunately, the problem made some of the statewide police force necessary in the first place had not disappeared, along with the state police. But Texas was changing. The military, led by war-seasoned veterans of the Union Army, was methodically ridding Texas of its Indian problem. The Frontier Battalion. By the second half of the decade, the biggest threat to Texas was lawless Texans. In 1874, the legislature created 2 ranger forces to cope with the situation. The Frontier Battalion, led by Major John B. Jones, and an organization called Special Forces under Captain Gander McNally. In 5 years' time, the Rangers were involved in some of the most celebrated cases in the history of the Old West. Much of the facts that would later be mixed with Ranger legend occurred during this turbulent period. Texas's deadliest outlaw, John Wesley Hardin, a preacher's son reputed to have killed 31 men, was captured in Florida by Ranger John B. Armstrong. After Armstrong, his long-barreled Colt 45 in hand, boarded the train, Hardin and 4 of his companions were on, and the outlaw shouted, "Texas, by God," and drew his own pistol. When it was over, one of Hardin's friends was dead. Hardin had been knocked out and cold, and his 3 surviving friends were staring at Armstrong's pistol. A neat round hole pierced Armstrong's hat, but he was uninjured. Hardin served a lengthy prison sentence, only to die in a shootout in El Paso in 1896, not long after his release. Preserving law and order. I think that's what brings peace. It's law. Whoops, there it went. Let's put it back up here. We need peace, don't we? And that is settled in law. In the 1890s, Rangers preserved law and order in Big Bend mining towns, tracked down train robbers, and even were called in to prevent an illegal prize fight from taking place on Texas soil. And that was up in Dallas. The promoters of the storied Fitzsimmons-Maher bout finally had to settle for staging a boxing match on the island in Rio Grande. In 1894 and 5, the Rangers scouted 173,381 miles, made 676 arrests, returned 2,856 head of stolen livestock to the owners, assisted civil authorities 162 times, and guarded jails on 13 occasions. In 1900, the Frontier Battalion faded along with the Frontier. By July of 1901, the legislature passed a new law concerning the Ranger service. The force to be organized by the governor was created for the purpose of protecting the frontier against marauding or thieving parties, and for the suppression of lawlessness and crime throughout the state. Ranger captains picked their own men who had to furnish their own horses and could dress as they chose. They did not even have a standard badge. One right, one Ranger. Wait, move. There we go. The law authorized for Ranger companies of a maximum of 20 men each. The career of Company B, Captain W.J. McDonald, and a book written about him added much to the Ranger legend, including 2 of its most famous sayings. The often cited "one right, one Ranger" appears to be based on several statements attributed to Captain McDonald by Albert Bigelow Payne in his classic book, Captain Bill McDonald, Texas Ranger. When sent to Dallas to prevent a scheduled prize fight, McDonald supposedly was greeted at the train station by the city's anxious mayor, who asked, "Where are the others?" To that, McDonald is said to have replied, "Hell, ain't I enough? There's only one prize fight." And on the title page of Payne's 1909 book on McDonald are 19 words labeled as Captain McDonald's Creed. Looks like the internet's going out again, but hopefully we'll get through this one. And on the title page, "No man," this is it. This is the creed, 19 words. "No man in the wrong can stand up against a fellow that's in the right and keeps on a-coming." Those words have evolved into the Ranger Creed. It's also the creed of many of us fighting for truth and justice. Call it the American way, if you will. During the first 2 decades of the 20th century, Rangers found themselves up against men in the wrong as always. Some of the law enforcement problems these officers confronted were as new as the century itself. Since the days of the Civil War, or the Mexican War, that is, Rangers an occasion to work, had occasional work to do along the long, meandering Rio Grande, or the Rio Bravo, but the emphasis on the river increased in 1910 with the outbreak of a revolution in Mexico. Generally easy to ford, the Rio Grande had never been much more than a symbolic boundary. Some of the violence associated with the political upheaval in Mexico crossed the river into Texas, bringing us to bandit raid. Panic spread in 1915 when authorities in McAllen, Texas, arrest Basilio Ramos Jr. Ramos was carrying a copy of the Plan of San Diego, a revolutionary manifesto supposedly written and signed at the South Texas town of San Diego, and is called for a formation of a libertarian army of races and peoples of Mexican Americans. One sec. There it is. Okay. Mexican Americans, African Americans, and Japanese to free the states of Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, California, and Colorado from the United States. Versions of the plan called for the murder of all. Dang it. Shoot. Just a sec. There, I think. Yeah, let me tie it back off. Okay. To free the states, versions of the plan called for the murder of all white citizens over 16 years of age. The goal was an independent republic, which might later seek annexation to Mexico. Raids from both sides of the border quickly escalated into guerrilla warfare. Francisco Villa, we know him as Pancho, his raid on Columbus, New Mexico in March 1916 causes more panic, and the United States responds by sending a large military force under General John J. Pershing in pursuit of Villa. Texas responded, as it had so many times in history, by raising ranger companies. And at the time, the Texas Ranger Force was very small and incapable of maintaining law and order along the border. The Texas legislature, by authorizing mass inductions and the overnight creation of new Texas Rangers, or Ranger Company. Hispanic as well as Anglo Texans served in these units. The Ranger Force grew to its largest level, but the lack of training and control were evident. Some of the new companies upheld the law, while others functioned as vigilante groups, incensed by raids from Mexico. These Rangers were given orders and wide powers to keep the hostilities in Mexico from washing across the river into Texas. Governor O.B. Colquitt wrote Ranger Captain John R. Hughes, "I instruct you and your men to keep that's Mexican raiders, off of Texas territory if possible, and if they invade the state, let them understand they do so at the risk of their own lives." Vigilante nature and poor command structure of the new Ranger units led to incidents unacceptable to regular Rangers. Serious crimes were committed that led to the 1919 Canales investigation after one retaliatory Ranger raid into Mexico, and the entire company was dismissed. In one battle in 1917, as many as 20 Mexicans may have been killed by Rangers who crossed into Mexico. The 35th legislature also created a Loyalty Ranger Force under the Hobby Loyalty Act to serve as a secret service for the state. Loyalty Rangers were to brief the Adjutant General of Mexico Adjutant General on Mexican revolutionary activities outside of San Antonio and in the border counties in Mexico and Texas. In response, to Pershing's U.S. troops on Mexican soil, President Carranza demanded the withdrawal of U.S. troops, which was summarily rejected. As a result, Mexican raiding intensified, and an attack against Laredo was considered with a combined force of San Diego Raiders and regular Mexican Army soldiers. A state of war was narrowly averted when U.S. and Mexican officials agreed to a peaceful settlement. The fragile peace was again threatened again in 1917 when a World War I telegram sent to Mexico by the German Secretary of State, Zimmerman, became public. We propose, let's see, we need Hans to do this in German. See Kyle. We propose an alliance on the following basis with Mexico. We shall never make war together and together make peace. We shall give general financial support, and it is understood that Mexico is to reconquer the lost territories in Mexico, Texas, and Arizona. The details are left for your settlement, or left to you for settlement. Nothing materialized but served to further alarm the public. Mexican raids into Texas in 1915 and 16 caused an estimated 21 American deaths and an estimated 300 Mexicans or Tejanos may have been killed in South Texas by the actions of rangers, vigilantes, and citizens. Some sources place the death toll as high as 300 and 3,000, respectively. In January of 1919, Representative Jose Canales of Brownsville demanded a legislative investigation on the conduct of the various ranger forces during the period. You there? Okay. During the period of 1915 to 17, and the reorganization of the force. The Texas legislature investigated 19 charges made against the Texas Ranger forces in the aftermath of the plan of San Diego and the war. The investigation resulted in the reduction of Ranger force to 4 companies of 17 men each. A tightening of qualifications for the Texas Ranger service led to its initial professionalization. Let's see how much further we got. We're at Bootleggers and Spy. Let me come down and come back up. There we go. Running over the little hour that I intended. I think we're an hour right now. And I'll go on. I'm going to skip this a little bit. I'm going to go down to modern times. The problem did not go unrecognized. The Texas Senate on September 25th of 1934 formed a committee to investigate crime and law enforcement in the state. The committee produced a report in early 1935 that was singularly critical of Texas law enforcement. However, the document also proposed a solution: the creation of a state law enforcement agency to be known as the Department of Public Safety. A bill was introduced that would create such an agency, which would operate under a 3-member Public Safety Commission. The Texas Rangers would be transferred from the Adjunct General's Department, and Highway Patrol would be moved from the Highway Department to form a single state police force. Some modifications in the law were made by a joint House-Senate Conference Committee, and on August 10th, 1935, it became effective. About the same time, historian Walter Prescott Webb's classic history of the Texas Rangers was going to press. In a hasty postscript tacked on to the end of the book, Webb made one of the few incorrect predictions of his long career. It is safe to say that as time goes on, the functions of the uniformed Texas Rangers will gradually slip away. Webb went on to say that the new law amounted to the practice to practical abolition of the Ranger force. Under the new DPS, the Ranger force would consist of 36 men. Though smaller than it had been in years, the Texas Rangers would have, for the first time in history, the benefits of a state-of-the-art crime laboratory, improved communications, and perhaps most importantly, political stability. In name, the Rangers were 100 years old. With the creation of the DPS, the Rangers would have professionalism to match their tradition. Tom Hickman, a veteran Ranger, was named as senior captain of the Rangers. The force was organized into 5 companies each, headed by a captain. Within a year of the incorporation into the DPS, the Texas Rangers got national publicity with the opening of the Texas Centennial Exposition at the State Fair in Dallas. The headquarters for Company B was set up and a specifically built log building on the fairgrounds. Texas Rangers were seen in the news, real footage, in movie houses around the nation. Modernization. Depression-era DPS appropriations were lean, but as the decades in the 1930s ended, the Texas Rangers were on their way towards modernization. Fingerprint and modus operandi files were available for Ranger use at the department's Camp Mabry headquarters in Austin, and Ranger vehicles were equipped with police radio receivers, so the two-way radios would not be available to Rangers until the 1940s. Former Ranger Manuel P., they called him Lone Wolf, this isn't Gonzalez, but Gonzalez, headed the Department, I've never seen that name before, headed the Department of Bureau of Intelligence, which gave Rangers the benefit of chemical, ballistic, and microscopic testing in their criminal investigation. In the early years, and as part of the DPS, Rangers were paid automobile mileage and furnished a Colt 45 and a lever-action Winchester 30 caliber rifle by the state. Rangers still had to provide their own car, horse, and saddle through the DPS, though the DPS issued horse trailers. For the first time, Rangers had the benefit of in-service training. They also had to write weekly activity reports. The Texas Rangers were part of another agency, but their duties essentially were the same as they had been for years. Rangers were called upon to enforce the state's laws with particular emphasis on felony crimes, gambling, and narcotics. Rangers were also used in riot suppression and in locating fugitives. This article goes on, covers through World War II, and keeping the peace, today's Rangers, and becoming a Ranger, and equipment, and on down the line. This comes from the Texas Ranger Museum, the history, or brief history, and I've read part of it. You're welcome to find the rest. I'm going to wrap this up right about now, and I'm glad you was, I hope you enjoyed the bowl of spaghetti I had for you today, and we'll throw something more against the wall next week and bring it back. I look to bring Captain Carl Koning and Brand Thornton together, and let's see what they've been up to here of late. Anyways, the internet's spinning again over here. Thanks for listening, folks, and Gander, thank you for carrying me along the line here. And we're waiting for Gander to come on.
All right, Vinny. Thanks for the broadcast. Appreciate you being on here. The audio was not good.
Really?
Anyway, if you can get back to using your data next week rather than the phone, probably work out better.
Okay, we'll do that. Yeah, I'll have data by then. Be refilled. So this is Freaker Friday. A little bit later on here, we're going to have Grammy Mary and her podcast blast off. Grammy's Rocket Chair. and later on that'd be at well, I guess we can translate to Eastern time for Gander. At 11 o'clock, we've got the Freakers Ball, y'all. Come on along. Tomorrow's the Dork Table, and Sunday you'll be rocking some blues, and that is at 11 Eastern.
No,
And
noon Eastern.
oh, you see there, it's 11 Central. You've made me have to do some translation. Followed by Hal Anthony at 3 o'clock. You're making me translate. And you know what? Last week I left out Gary L and Gigi's Boo for the Road Less Traveled, and that's a couple hours later after Hal is done.
7 p.m.
So thank you. Hey, I need a one good translator sometimes, and so Jose, we've not heard from our friend Jose in some time, and he would probably get mad if I was speaking with some Spanish accent, you know. Pero este es cuál es. Muchas gracias a todos. Regrese en la próxima semana. Hasta la vista, mis amigos y amigas, carnales. Adiós. Until next week.
Peace.
Buenos días. And we'll hang this up.